everyone, and welcome to the fourth episode of HSBC's All You Roundtable series, Scale to Succeed. Today, as businesses power the next phase of growth and business continuity, YourStory is proud to partner with HSBC to feature entrepreneurs and industry stalwarts to engage in inspiring conversations and share valuable insights and groundbreaking lessons from their experience. Today's conversation will focus on measuring the impact of Agritech. According to a 2019 NASSCOM report, India is home to more than 450 agri-tech startups, growing at a rate of about 25% year on year. These companies are increasingly empowering 150 million odd farmers with data-led systems. Now, according to a report by EY, the Indian agri-tech market has the potential to reach about $24 billion by 2025. So in this discussion today, we have with us experts from the agri-tech segment to uncover the impact of agri-tech, which has had on the Indian ecosystem so far, and the trends that will shape up the growth of the segment going forward. Let me introduce my co-moderator for this session. We have with us Dilip Gopinath, who's the Director and Country Lead Tech Commercial Banking, HSBC. Over to you, Dilip, and to introduce all our panelists.
Thanks, Priya, and nice to catch up with you again. We had this last panel a couple of weeks back. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Probably I'll start by introducing or welcoming the panelists over here. We have Shubhadeep Sanyal, partner Omnivore, and we know Omnivore is one of the largest investors in the agri-tech space. We've got Saurabh Agrawal, co-founder and CTO of Resha Mandi, the Silk People. We've got Nikhil Toshniwal, founder of Farm Guide and VP Digital and Network Initiatives of DHeart, and Taranjit Singh Bamra from AgNext. So we're thrilled to have you with us and looking forward to your thoughts on the topic. So over to you, Priya, to kickstart the session.
All right, thanks for that, Dilip. I want to ask all our speakers one common question. What, according to you, has been the most influential or the most important aspect behind the growth of agri-tech in India? And let's begin with you, Subhadeep.
Sure. Thank you, Priya. Thanks, Dilip, for having us. If I look at kind of, the most important reasons for agri-tech to now be of some scale, I typically come up with buckets, right? First and foremost is, of course, the kind of talent pool today which agri-tech attracts. Today's kind of meeting is just a sample of the quality of people who are now working in agri-tech. So I think that's an amazing feat, and I think we have come a long way since we began Omnivore, more than a decade ago. So I think that is definitely there. The second, I think, very important aspect behind the growth of agri has been the larger, I would say, maturing of the digital ecosystem. So with mobile phone penetration, with data becoming cheap, the post-Geo era, I think, has been very, very enabling for access issues. So you now are able to connect more with rural stakeholders, farmers, and others. So I think that digital highway is very, very important. And I think lastly, we've had a fairly enabling regulatory climate as well over the last few years, which is very conducive to capital coming in, right? So I think a mix of all these factors, if I may.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Subhadeep. Let's come to you, Saurabh.
Thank you, Priya, Dilip, for having me here, first of all. And I echo what Shubhadeep has put forward, that openness to technology adoption in the rural India and the agri space in itself, which is led by the consumer tech adoption. Everybody has WhatsApp, Facebook. So the penetration of consumer apps has put the tech in agri-tech in the forefront now. Combined with that, Shubhadeep gave the credit to the new age founders, but I think the tailwinds on investments itself on the agri space, they're encouraging, and founders like us are able to make a dent there because of the investments. The ecosystem is supportive enough now. And thirdly, I think a major part of it is to do with essential versus good. I think there are a lot of essential problems in agri supply chains which are still untapped. So there's a huge opportunity. And I think with these three combined, technology, investments, and essential problems to be solved, I think those are the aspects because of which growth of agri-tech is happening.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Let's come to you, Taranjit.
Well, what I believe what has really happened in the last 5 years is, the innovations that were needed in agriculture were we're kind of merging on two aspects. One was the intrinsic technology that was needed, which could not be brought from anything extrinsic. And this intrinsic technology frameworks have become so good and very much adaptable that has led to a lot of innovations in this sector. But what has come up as a much better part of this is all the extrinsic business models. Earlier, it was just thought about, that there will be very few business models in agriculture value chains. Now, there are so many examples of, an X business model being brought to agri value chain. And that is enabled only by the technology that is being developed by a lot of people intrinsically for some time now. So what I believe, whether it's a SaaS, whether it's subscription, whether it's so many other business models that now exist only because we could understand what are the business models in other sectors and inherently develop very, very core technologies that are needed in this agriculture, because not any technology will fit into this segment. So I think that culmination of intrinsic and extrinsic has led to a lot of a sea change, what it was talked about 5 years back. And the second point, I agree with Shubhadeep, capital, and that's intellectual capital as well as the financial capital, of which, both of which Shubhadeep has been a great, or Omnivore has been a great provider. So I think, or enabler, I mean, both of them enable each other. So I believe this has been a great journey for people who are intellectually challenged or want to be intellectually challenged that, what's next? What needs to be built for these, value chains? And they have just come in hordes, and that's a great sign that, that what is important to the next world civilization to have a good food on the plate, I think a lot of us are solving. So I think these are the only 2 points from my side. Obviously, there are my rights of others.
Absolutely. Nikhil, let's come to you next.
Yeah, thanks everyone for having me. So basically, I see 3 different factors which has definitely pushed the Agritech to a different level. What we are seeing today. The first one which I see is that abundance of and availability of be quality inputs, seed, fertilizers, the regular innovations within the manufacturing, regular innovations from the output side. Definitely, and again, not to forget the financial services and insurance, the way at which they are being evolving is something which I see as the first trigger to it, where there are so many companies which are being trying to figure out right innovation for the right diversity and right target segment. So that is definitely increase the ask for agri technology. So that's one abundance of various kind of innovations happening around quality inputs required by the farmers. The second thing which I see is that if I look back in the previous 5 to 10 years, there has been a greater sense of awareness among the farmers. Like if I count now, if you go to a farmer and talk about soil testing, farmers are aware about it. If you talk to the farmer and talk about interest subsidy, you'll find that every farmer is aware about it. So these are things which we have seen that greater sense, and which we are able to see the complete geopolitical scenario also, thanks to the government at present, which has definitely evolved the awareness index of the farmers regarding various technologies. So that is what I see as a second trigger. And third, after all, is the to complete as a triple A, abundance, awareness, and the third one would be, I would say, acceptability. The founders at today are really being accepted with respect by either it's a venture capitalist, either it's a government, either it's a policymakers, or it be a large institutions or existing players of agriculture who are seeking for some kind of innovation. They are not refrained to talk to the founders how they are going about it and accept the new ideas in an industry which is being centuries being old. So these are the 3 A's which I have seen that are a great trigger to the ecosystem which we are seeing today.
Absolutely. Dilip, would you like to add to that?
I think compared to all the panelists, I'm probably a layman over here, but for me, if I have to draw a parallel as a banker to other industries where we've seen growth happening, I would say 2 things. One is the segment, I think, is very highly disaggregated. So there's a huge opportunity to aggregate everything, be it supply, be it demand, supply chain, create efficiencies in supply chain. So, and we've seen that happen in a lot of other normal areas. And the second is use of technology to remove the silos that everybody is working. Okay, so these are two things I would say from a layman's perspective is driving agri-tech, and we've got people on the panel who are doing it in some form or shape. For example, Resha Mandi is doing it. They're reducing the number of silos in the silk supply chain, and I had an opportunity to speak to Mayank, and we're closely working with them. So I think use of technology and the ability to disaggregate the entire thing and create more value ultimately to the farmer, I think that's what's really driving it. And obviously technology has reached so far, like as Nikhil was saying, the farmer is so aware, like he's using internet all the time to monitor his farm produce and everything. So he's also quite aware and is not reluctant to use technology. So I think these are the 2-3 factors, according to me, which is really driving the growth here.
Thanks for that, panelists. I have specific questions for each of you. Let's begin with you, Subhadeep. I want to understand the role that Omnivore is playing in building the future for agriculture and food systems in India. If you could briefly talk about what the thought process behind investments are, and what do you see the future of the agri space evolving to be?
Sure, Priya. I think so. When we started Omnivore, and this was 2011, so more than a decade ago, I think Agritech wasn't really a coined word back then, right? We were basically trying to, as Taran mentioned, we were took a business model which worked in the VC industry and trying to apply it to agriculture. But at the same time, our rationale for doing that, we might have been very early to the game. And it was a pretty lonely journey the first 5 years. But I think the rationale was always that we definitely need more technology for farmers to make more money, right? The level at which agriculture operates even today is not sustainable, right? So tech plays a very strong role in helping bridge that gap. And that's, I think, been the center of whatever Omnivore has done over the years, right? We've now invested in 40 plus companies. We manage close to 1,000 crores of investments today, and doing more. But our fundamental thesis has always remained kind of that: is this innovation helping make the farming ecosystem, and its stakeholders more money? And I think for us as a fund to take, now we're an early stage fund, right? So our job is to take early stage risk and catalytic risk. So that's kind of what we've been doing so far. I think what we've been able to achieve somewhat has definitely been to be able to identify gaps pretty early in the day, because we're a team which is just agri obsessed, if I can use that word. So we get to kind of meet people. We travel a hell of a lot even today, in trying to just understand that, is there a gap here? Is somebody solving for it or not? So I think that's kind of the early catalytic work which we've been able to do over the last decade. One more thing which I think we've been able to somewhat now also see results of is being able to get in other investors, because one company, with all of us, and all due respect, we can't really change much in such a massive market. So our one of the things that we're very comfortable sharing is that we were able to get in more mainstream investors, both venture and otherwise, to look at the ecosystem and of course participate. I think that's definitely one area of work. In terms of future, I think now we're at a stage where we're seeing a lot of business models which are solving for, as Dilip mentioned, the kind of aggregation problems, right? The disaggregated nature is being solved for in various different value chains. Going forward, I think a job of a VC is to kind of look at things which will become, really hot in 5 or 10 years, or very critical in 5 or 10 years, and not really now. So it's a bit like crystal ball grazing. You get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But what we do see becoming much more important going forward is basically, how do we look at resource efficiency now? Once you have solved for access and distribution issues, how do you make per unit much more valuable, whether it's productivity using precision tech, or being much more resource efficient? And then finally looking at sustainability as well, because agriculture and sustainability need to go hand in hand, right? So I think themes there will become much more critical, and happy to talk at length later about it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Pradeep. I want to come to you, Saurabh, to understand how is Resha Mandi strengthening the sericulture community, from farmers to reelers to weavers and even retailers in India?
The mantra there for Resha Mandi has been the ecosystem play. I think we are strengthening this value, a vertically integrated ecosystem play into the whole thing. So we don't stop at only inputs, or we don't stop only at market linkage. We go across the board horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, that's why you said farmers, reelers, weavers, retailers. So we touch each touch point on the value chain, and we handle horizontally all the problems that vertically all the problems that they have. Like, for example, for farmers, we deal with inputs to quality inputs to them. We provide IoT technologies which have seen some good results: 27% improvement in the rearing sheds and the cocoon production, 70% less water wastage. And then, although the water has reduced by 70%, 40% more increase in production, although the water consumption is less. So experiments like those have helped our farmers earn better, produce better. Then the market linkages for farmers, that takes them to the next node, and giving them a transparent pricing and logistics support and near proximity convenience for linkages. So that's the whole farmer like that we have created horizontally and vertically. Then moving on to retailers, the main challenge was quality assured raw material. Whatever farmer is producing, is it quality tested? Will it work on my mill? Will it work on my machine? Nobody knew. So Rendata testing was there in the industry, but not adopted. That technology has been widely adopted now because of Resha Mandi. All our centers, all our produce goes through quality test technologically. And then that is just one leg of it for a reeler. The second leg is, once he's done producing, his job is to produce yarn. Once he's produced yarn, he needs market linkage. That is another problem. So if we want to give him the whole ecosystem, we want to give him the market linkage as well. That's where we forayed into the yarn linkage, where we provide yarns to our weavers, taking them from the reelers who are producing it. Now, again, there were similar problems in this value chain. Information arbitrage across the value chain is same. So a weaver doesn't know what quality yarn is getting because he was getting it from a trader, or there was a price margin happening. There was information arbitrage. So what we have done is, every yarn package that we today is stamped by a quality test report. A scientifically done linear test report is attached to all the packages that we dispatch to our weavers. We were able, by bringing standardization in the packaging itself, we were able to reduce the TAT by 60% for these weavers. Earlier, a weaver who was basically procuring yarns for the month end. So if he was to set up a loom on 1st of May, he would place order on 1st of April, because that was the TAT he was looking at in the market, because the traders' orders getting cancelled. Today, place the order on 25th, get the yarn on 28th. So his cycle is well oiled now. Now, similarly, now up the value chain, what happens is weavers weave saris, they make fabrics, mills make fabric. They needed somebody to take these things to retailers. Then again, the middleman comes into picture. There is information arbitrage, pricing, quality testing, nothing. So what we did launched a digital, we have our digital app, Resha Mandi Super App. On that, all these weavers today can click photos, create digital catalogs. These are straight away shared with retailers. They can just scroll through the catalog, place orders, and route it to the corresponding weavers. So that digital ecosystem, and he knows what price he's getting, where he is getting. And with this digitization, what has happened is retailers get a one-stop solution from Resha Mandi. They want to source from Banaras, Dharmavaram, Kanjivaram, Assam, Surat, anywhere. We have catalogs for them all from pan India. So that is the value add the retailers got. Now, once we were doing all this, we did a horizontal integration and we did the vertical integration at each node. Very soon we realized that this is not enough. There is a layering of capital that needs to be done on top of it. So that's why we have forayed into a financial arm now. We are setting up Resha Mudra, which will provide working capital cycles to improve the productivity and take off that hassle, that nagging that all these stakeholders have in their mind. If my capital gets stuck in the market, what will happen? How will I source? How will I do what? So Resha Mudra is the arm where we are providing working capital cycles and insurances to these guys so that they can work on their core competencies. which are producing cocoons or producing yarns or producing beautiful saris, and retailers basically selling them. So I think coupled with tech and capital, we have been able to move the needle a little bit.
Right. Thanks for that, Saurabh. Nikhil, coming to you very quickly, some key learnings in your efforts of building an AI-enabled technology to revolutionize supply chain and production efficiency in the farm sector.
Sure. Happy to answer that. So I would say the key learnings while building this complete, tech stack, AI-enabled tech stack. So one of the learning had been that whatever is to be built has to be scalable in nature. If we look at the characteristic of all the, I would say key users from institution point of view, be it be an input company, be it be our supply chain partners, be it be insurance or banking, you would see that, none of those parties shall be okay if a solution is being solving a problem of only a particular geography. It has to, whatever AI solution is being there, be it be identification of the farm boundaries, analysis, and underwriting tool, it has to be scalable in nature. So that is the first learning. Secondly, if I see that the key part which comes from Dehat ecosystem altogether is that ability to test it on the ground and collect a very reliable ground truthing data, which is, I would say, basis of any AI algorithm. So that is something which is to be done very judicially, and that requires a hell amount of patience, because it takes around minimum a season for a one person to collect the data or across geography. So it cannot be something where it is being rapidly being prototyped to be built out. No, I do think that require ground truthing a lot, and it has to follow that patient path. So that is second. The third one would be that yes, AI is being capable to solve a lot of problems, but still when it is being packaged and delivered as an end use case to a farmer through a mobile app or through an agriculture company or through an post-production company to plan where to buy from, it has to be very much focused and packaged in a manner that it doesn't overwhelm the last mile user that okay, these can do so many things. No, I would say that a key crux over here would be to come up with the AI tool with the packaging of a solution which is able to solve those minute problems. It is okay to pick one problem at a time, and I have seen that the adoption by the users who have been given just one use case has been fairly very high as compared to the users who have been overwhelmed with these kind of things. Because as I see that the industry is also evolving in terms of how to consume these items. People have been working traditionally into those things. So that is where I see that, for an example, if I talk about a bank, to highlight a bit more upon this thing, for a bank, the number of use cases required, that how do I identify the crop name on the farm, how do I identify whether he's being doing sowing on the how much of acreage he's being sowing, what is the crop quality, what is the history, what is the repayment chances. So in all those cases, what you see is that it is better to have that specific use case being solved at a scale with the right precision after being moved out to the secondary use case or a tertiary analysis of those AI enabled tools. So yeah, these are three basic things which I've seen have been learning across farm and they have so far.
Well said, Nikhil. Thanks so much for that. I have a question for you, Taranjeet. Agritech claims to solve the quality analysis problem through its proprietary in-house technology products. So tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, surely. I mean, as Saurabh just highlighted a while back, that any node in the value chain that we enter in agriculture, the quality of the raw material is critical, and that kind of defines any transaction. And not just in agriculture, if you talk about any transaction that happens, it happens on two axes, the axis of quantity and the axis of quality. The coordinate of both of them is the price, which defines at what quantity and at what quality you have bought a raw material. Now, across timelines, if you see across any value chain, you will see most of them have been dependent on very, very subjective valuation of quality, and hence the transactions have been left to very distant transactions which are not digitized. A lot of losses that happens not just for one transaction at the farm gate, but you can take it to the consumer level. I mean, if the quality is not evaluated, you are never able to, build up a right transaction. The connotations of these or the derivatives of these are not just in the pricing. It has in a lot of other services that are there when transaction is happening. For example, one of our largest clients, which is now routing around 4,000 crore worth of transactions on our platform, where quality inspection is happening through our platform. They save not just in time, but in pricing, but they saved on time because that saved them somewhere around 60 to 70 crore worth of payment that they had to do because of delayed payment quality inspection that they had to incur. This is just one of them. I mean, we can talk about spices, grains, tea, any value chain where we have gotten so entrenched now to understand every transaction, and we today understand at least 9 to 10 business models that happens in each one of them, through which savings could be done with the right rapid on-spot inspection of quality. It has led us to create new business models. Definitely around quality, we had built extremely strong technology over the last 6 years. Around quantity, now we are packaging multiple things like traceability or e-auctions as part of the whole deal itself, and this we are kind of packaging as a service. And most importantly, around pricing, I mean, we understand that at a better quality, at a better seasonality, people want to buy more, as is happening with, let's say, wheat today. I mean, the private buying of wheat is so high, and people are needing that. I need to evaluate quality, and I need a better finances for that. And I think that's where AgNext becomes a de facto technology player, which kind of gets entrenched into every transaction and enables the transaction to happen with finance as well. So I think this is where we find our value to be extremely high, and the 8-9 business models that are running around just the aspect of digitizing quality. Now we are going to scale not just in India but globally also, where a maize player from Indonesia, a feed player from Vietnam, uh, another spices player from Malaysia. We have got multiple orders just without any even going, doing any outbound here. It's all inbound that we are just getting through word of mouth, because people now understand that the quality and related transactions is very critical, and AgNext technologies need to be embedded into that. So I think we truly understand what technology focus we have built this with, and how do we now wrap up into various business models, which will be encapsulated by multiple parties in the value chain. So yeah, that's what is all about us.
Right. Thanks so much for that, Taranjeet. Dilip, I believe you have a couple of questions for our panelists.
Yeah, so I'll just run it through quickly. And my first question is actually Saurav, and one of my favorite questions is, Indian agriculture, most of the disorganized markets are very cash intensive, So how you guys, been able to digitize that journey, and is there something that we can learn from that journey of yours? We've tried to digitize the cash intensive silk supply chain, and can it be replicated across other players,
Yeah, surely. So journey of Resha Mandi and me specifically as a founder has been a roller coaster ride. I think it is true for any disruptive startup which is trying to intervene at such levels, rural levels and that segment. But it has been equally exciting as well. So we have had challenges of product market fits. We have had challenges of doing soft pivots, earning trust of farmers, technology adoption. How do you make sure that they adopt your technology, what you are saying? And then how do you convince them that digital payments is the way to go, because they used to get cash earlier, most of them, right? And they used to get shortchanged. But I think the ecosystem has accepted us primarily because of 2-3 things. One of it being our quality consciousness, that each leg that we, or each stakeholder that we work with, there is always a quality assigned to it or attached to it. Be it Cocoon, we quality test them, we do rendata test, we do yarn grading, denier test, So we do all these tests which give confidence to the supply chain, right? So that enables us to trust. The second thing which has been a massive help is keeping your commitments in the supply chain. So if Resha Mandi is saying that you will get the credit of your produce in 2 days, and digitally in his bank account after 2 days that credit happens, so farmer is happy. He trusts you that, okay, first time it happened, second time it happened. Now the ecosystem has trusted us enough to get attached to us. Today we have around 1.5 lakh stakeholders working with us. Now it is up to us as Resha Mandi to keep that trust, I think. And yes, the ecosystem approach of coupling everything together and giving the full package to the stakeholders is the way to go, and it can be replicated in any value chain. I believe that.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. I think I heard the word trust so many times, and that's what a bank is also known for, right? So nowadays, when you get out of a Ola cab and you have to pay cash, you don't have to show him कि आपको पैसा मिल गया. Just, that sound itself will tell him, yeah, okay, आपको मेरे account में पैसा आ गया. So I think trust is really key to give the comfort, especially to farmers. Shubhadev, I think probably I want to ask you the next question is, and probably a lot of people in the panel also would be interested to know, you've got a new initiative called the OmniX Bio initiative, and you've also launched a new fund, which is also quite exciting, and I think it's focusing on climate change in agriculture. So can you just tell us more about OmniX as well as the new fund that you've launched?
Sure, Dilip, sure. I think I alluded to it in the previous question a bit. So, what again, it comes from our learnings over the past couple of funds and how we are seeing the ecosystem mature. So OmniX Bio is our little kind of initiative to just try and seed more entrepreneurs who are working in the fields of, let's say, agricultural biotechnology, novel farming systems, bioenergy, biomaterials, as well as innovative, resource efficient kind of foods, maybe alternate protein and whatnot. The reason for doing this is that, over the years, what we've seen is that we don't have enough on the digital side. We've been able to innovate, and we have now wonderful companies which have now come up. But on the core biotechnology side of things, we're as a country, we're still not there when it comes to agri-biotech. So this is kind of our initiative to see if we can help, provide some early stage capital, venture funding, some mentorship programs with global leaders, institutional partnerships, even cross portfolio business partnerships can happen under this initiative. So that's kind of what OmniX Bio will look like, and we will of course have an internal team which understands and can breathe this properly. As far as our new fund is concerned, yes, so we did launch Omnivo Fund 3, and as I mentioned, I think the way we are seeing things evolve over the next 5 to 10 year horizon is that India will have a lot of good opportunities to come in terms of its agricultural ecosystem if we are able to focus not just on solving for inefficiencies. I think that problem, of course, is deep enough and will take time. But I think we'll do well if we can look at issues around sustainability, around how we treat our soil, how water efficient are we in agriculture, how energy efficient are we in agriculture, essentially. So which basically means that yes, climate change is a massive issue that we have now early signals of. We're seeing bore wells sometimes in northern India and southern India reach 1,000 feet and more in depth, right? And way more sometimes. So this will cause stress on agriculture at some point, right? So we need to be more responsible towards that. Another, I think, very selfish way for India overall, I think, would in terms of its adaptation to more sustainable ways of doing agri would definitely be that we can become a very strong export focused country as well, apart from taking care of our own requirements, which of course goes into the health and nutrition part, and the nation's health is extremely important. But I think if we're able to become much more sustainable with our value chains, and I think both all three companies today here are in that value chain at some point, they would appreciate this, that our ability as a country to be a very strong dominant player in multiple commodities also goes up if we're able to produce better. So I think that's kind of the whole focus of the next fund. It's a similar sized fund. We're raising about 150 million in this fund, give or take a bit more or less. And we'll continue to be active in the seed to Series A stage.
Sure, all the best for the new fund. And I think the point you mentioned about borewell is quite true in Bangalore, where some of the parts you really have to dig almost 500,000 feet to get water. I think it's the perennial problem. And Bangalore is an area where you get rains at least 4-5 months a year. Okay, so I can imagine other cities.
Yeah.
Coming to you, Nikhil, I think we already know that DHAT is one of the largest or most valued fintechs we have in the country today. And you have a goal of reaching out to 5 million farmers by around 2024. So how do you think you get to there? Obviously, you'll have people like Shubhadev giving you funding, but beyond that, what are things that enable you to reach that many farmers?
Sure. I would say definitely. If I see that one of the key thing is the business model of DHAT itself, where it comes with the combo of solutions from seed, from advisory, from inputs, then comes output. So yes, in our journey, where we see is that how much relevant we are in the complete life cycle of a farmer around the year. So if I look at, like, in all the aspect that, say, on a monthly basis, they indirectly they are around 15 lakh acres which are being utilizing inputs which is being provided through DHAT. On the other side, on an everyday basis, there are around 1700 metric ton of produce which is being procured. On a monthly basis, around 1.1 million minutes of advisories is given to the farmers. And not to forget, yes, in our initial steps into insurance and financing, we see that this all together is being coupling up really good. And this is something which is making it relevant for most of the farmers to join. So we see that this makes it relevant for the farmers as soon as they figure out, okay, there's a DHAT store nearby, or there's a DHAT intervention in this geography. That's a great pull. And not to forget that, we have at present, like, feel proud to say that the only company which is have got its presence across 150 districts of India. And in our journey to it, we feel that in the upcoming 15 months or so, we'll be present across all the major agriculture districts of India with all our network expansion. So I would say that's one. And secondly, if in terms of digital, the adoption by the farmers digitally, along with the financial services, would be definitely a key driver. It is undoubtedly that, finance, access to nano finance, access to insurance, which could be understood in a simple language by the farmer. These two would be a great, I would say, pull, and would provide a great cushion to the farmers. Especially if I talk about, there are around 44 million hectares around in paddy itself, which is being grown in India. And you would see that around 60% of those farmers are vulnerable to floods, to excessive rainfalls, right? And having a very marginal land size pattern. So in that case, having those financial tools would be a great pull towards it. And third one would be, I would say, a lot of experimentation about, yet I would say the industry is yet to crack the what kind of right content which is simpler, which is fun for the farmers to adopt to. So that as soon as the smartphone adoption increases, the farmers are also very much keen to explore those possibilities and customize advisories. So I would say, yeah, in a nutshell, these are the three things into our mindset, into the DHAT plans, where we see that. And if I would say even 50% of it is being achieved, 5 million still a very small number as compared to the large market it is. So yeah.
I think the one point you mentioned about, when you give services to farmers, the word of mouth itself, I think, will get you that many customers. If you're able to give that pocket size or sachet size financing, as you call it,
yeah,
I think that itself will get you there.
Indeed. That's a key point.
Sure. Thanks, Nikhil. And finally, Taranjeet sir, I think you mentioned that you're working with a lot of global companies to revolutionize, the agri-tech space for sustainable agriculture. Can you probably share some more thoughts on, the role that you're playing in strengthening the ecosystem at large?
I think the core strength of the ecosystem comes from sustainability. That the whole processes that we are adhering to across the value chain are sustainable enough. In the last agriculture 1.0, which was there during World War One, Agriculture 2.0, which came probably from 60s till till the recent times, and Agriculture 3.0, which is more about how we can create things more sustainable. It will only come if we infuse technology into each and every operation. And I think the biggest thing that we saw was very clear: buying, as simple as that. If you're buying anything and you haven't digitized, millions to billions dollars worth are getting lost, both of the buyer and also for the seller, because they are not able to procure or sell at with the right I would say value. And that's where the largest value erosion happens. And as simple as it sounds, where the largest value erosion happens is where the largest value resides. And that is what we are digitizing. So with that focus, we have remained core to our value that values, not the value. We have remained core to our values that we will transform the value of the ecosystem, where the right, truthful, transparent transaction happens. And I think that is the secret mantra of AgNext, that infusing that through something which wasn't even believable, that that kind of thing can happen, that in 1 minute you get to see an entire uh, frame of decision of whether I should take it or I should leave it, has enabled such amazing business models for us to now scale globally. And I think that's where the attraction comes, where we are just focused on the largest value enhancer in the whole value chain. But I think the second point, that making it sustainable, is through value, and that's what we are focusing. But the second point that we intend to highlight very clearly of what we are bringing to the ecosystem is, I think, just the buying selling intersection is just a tip of the iceberg. Now, when we know from where what quality is coming, we know how do we understand where do I have to sell more at a better price based on the quality. The kind of value add that we can undertake for each client of ours is humongous. And very fortunately, all of them have been taught to us by our customers themselves. We didn't have to put our even one thought around it. They only came and, hey, why don't you do this, so that my high gluten I can sell it here and low gluten I can sell there. Why? And we didn't knew that we are actually sitting, we are just one SQL query away from analyzing where high gluten is sitting or where low gluten is sitting. And how much money you can make. 10 to 15% for a corporate is massive. And while we were only focusing on the cost side, that hey, what, you can anything from 0.5 to 8 to 10% you can get down to saving. They said, forget about it, I can make 20% more. So I think that's what makes it more exciting. That's the data sciences that we are building. Or I would say we are at the base camp. We have not even started towards the Mount Everest yet. And we can clearly see that along the journey, the innovation scale at which we had been working very passionately, I think there'll be so many technologies that will be coming, which were primarily redundant in their individuality, but combining together, like I'm talking about traceability and auctions combined together as a service, which was not there, managed services for multiple things which were not there. So I think it's just a start for us. And right now, we have just kind of started with the midpoint or the midstream. And the capability to go both downstream and upstream is very high. We will keep focusing on midstream for some time and then decide where do we scale globally.
Thank you very much, sir, for that. I think all the best on your journey. There's a lot of road to be covered, I would believe.
Yes.
So over to you, Priya, now.
Right. Thanks for that, Dilip. In fact, I have a question for you.
Is it?
I wanted to ask you how HSBC is supporting the Agritech segment at large. If you could just throw light on that.
Yeah, so probably I'll just make it quick. So I'll like to divide it into four things. One, So the agri business as such is very standardized, right? In the sense, when I say standard, it's the solutions are same. Everybody needs food. So we help agritechs go global, and we've helped quite a few of them, say, set up shop in the Europe, the Middle East, the US, be it setting up shop to market their products or gain access to that country as such. So that's one area. So we've opened up HSBC's network to even the smallest to the smallest startups that we have. Number two, we have a robust credit program. So we have a credit program that we give to startups after a certain series of funding that they've raised, and in fact we work with a couple of players as on the panel itself. We were trying to help them bridge working capital gaps, cash flow gaps in a very efficient manner as compared to other forms of capital that we have. The third is HSBC as a global bank. We work with a lot of multilateral agencies. In fact, we're working on a couple of live cases where we're using multilateral guarantees to provide financing, long-term financing, and better access to different pools of capital. So the idea is to bring a huge set of capital pool to the agritech space here. And finally, be it a B2B or a B2C agritech, you need access to robust digital solutions, right? Like Saurav was saying, that how do you digitize the entire value chain? So you need to have banking systems in place which can disburse money to the farmers in quick succession, which is robust, which does not fail. The moment it fails, then there's a trust issue. So the kind of technology that we use to digitize the entire value chain, be it on the receivable and the payable side, and that's like quite out of the market kind of stuff. So these are the 3-4 areas that we are trying to work with the agri space, Priya.
Right, thanks for that, Dilip. I have one closing question for all the panelists, and I want your answers to be as brief as possible. Maybe just very quickly in a word or in a line maximum. Can you tell me one trend that you feel accelerate the growth of the agri-tech sector in India and enable Indian companies to make a global impact at large? Let's begin with you, Shubhadeep.
Sure, Priya. So I think in a line, more and more data focus for every stakeholder, data-driven approaches, a stronger collaboration amongst players, whether it's other startups, whether it's debt providers and other financial institutions, and I think deeper value chain integration. That's I think kind of my 3 thoughts which will enable us to really accelerate growth faster, in addition to sustainability, which I've already said before.
Thanks for that, Saurabh. Let's come to you next, very quickly.
Very quickly, I think it's just, for me, it's just 2 things. First is the innovation, technology innovation. If we are able to rapidly do technology innovation, which improves farmers' production, productivity, or anybody in the supply chain, that will be a trend. And then if we are able to successfully demonstrate that to a farmer and make him adopt it. So technology adoption and innovation are the trends which will take us to the next level.
Thanks for that, Nikhil. Coming to you next.
From my side, I would say it would be know the farmer, whether it is being given an insurance, whether it's being given financing, input or output. If we have a detail about who the farmer at the last mile is, definitely I see that this could be scale up and going to get a very great visibility across the globe.
Absolutely. Taranjeet, coming to you.
I think this was something I used to talk 20 years back at all of my friends' meets also, that, mark my words, it was services that are going global. In 10 to 20 years, it would be food. So I think that time has come. We will become an export powerhouse shortly. And the thing that will make it bigger is our understanding of agriculture. Various value chains, all of them exist here, and all kinds of data modeling, whether it is in trade, whether it is in agronomy, whether it is in anything that requires data sciences to pep up and ramp up. I think that exists, and India has already covered many cycles of that in multiple verticals. So I think it's just about to explode. That concoction of agronomy and data sciences is just about to arrive and take India to what it truly has to become.
All right, panelists, thank you very much for joining us today and for all your valuable insights on the agri-tech space. We'll be keenly watching the space, and I'm sure our viewers have also loved and absolutely enjoyed this very insightful session. Thanks for your time.